So it's time. Bethesda just released the Fallout 76 public test server yet again, and what this means is we get a look at really a lot of the upcoming content for this game. Based on the recently released roadmap, we are functionally taking a look at what will entertain us in Fallout 76 up until fall of this year. This is going to be the big summer update, or at least moderately sized summer update coming to Fallout 76, and there's some very interesting things to take a look at here. But even further, one of the exciting things whenever it comes to public test server updates is of course data mines, and this time we have some serious data mines around the future. A look at what is actually coming with expeditions, some of the first real major updates about what expeditions will actually entail and the systems around it, but even further a first look at what is coming at the end of the year with this big new boss and somewhat Nuka World on tour. But I'm also going to tell you why you desperately will need today's video's sponsor, one of the absolute best mobile games around, Raid Shadow Legends. And if you're already convinced to download Raid because my opening was that incredible, you could use my link in the video description, the QR code right here, and immediately jump in. But to me, one of the most interesting parts about Raid is the champion design. There's a huge variety here. These skinwalkers are some of the most terrifying armed creatures, and also have a few champions that will definitely make you do a double take, but there's also things like the undead and their mystical abilities, although by far my favorite are the more traditional knight-styled banner lords, which easily have some of the coolest armor sets that appear in the entire game. But my favorite part about Raid overall is the ability to customize and pick champions from each of these different categories to assemble a pretty powerful team that you can then face different challenges in the various game modes, whether it be other players or epic boss fights. You really start to get attached to some of these characters as you gradually level them up and spec them out with different gear. With that said, there's seriously never been a better time to get started. And if you use my link or scan the QR code right here, new players will get a free starter pack worth almost $30 to kickstart your game. We're talking a free champion with Vergis, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in game. You'll find these rewards in your inbox here for the next 30 days only, and even once you're in game, add me to your friends list. But looking back at Fallout 76, let's first take a look at the 3 new events on their way coming this summer. The first of these is going to be the Moonshine Jamboree. This is a pretty fun one thematically. A moonshiner is making a very special kind of moonshine in Appalachia, this requiring this new acidic gulper venom. We are tasked with defending his stills where this moonshine is cooking while waves of gulpers, ghouls, and anglers try to attack them. And there's also a side objective of delivering acidic gulper venom from these gulpers to a very nice and beautifully placed bathtub in the moonshiner's house, so he could hopefully make some more moonshine in the future, and if you do this enough times, you'll actually get some of your own, but more on that in a moment. The enemies here are going to come in 4 waves in total, and it's honestly a pretty familiar point defense event. We have several of these in Fallout 76 at this point. Enemies are going to come attack certain objectives. You have to defend those objectives and make sure they don't get destroyed. If they get destroyed, you'll get worse rewards, and if all of them get destroyed, you'll just fail the event altogether. The side objective of getting 30 acidic gulper venom is required in that you have to actually do this. You're going to loot this off the gulpers. There's nothing really special about it, but after you get that initial 30, you actually have an optional side objective of collecting a second 30, and this will give you a special reward at the end of the event if you do so. The event area itself is pretty fun. I like the layout and design of this one. It's a real rundown moonshiner spot, and the house is fully explorable, but the real standout here is actually the music that plays during this event. Probably some of the best event music in the game in my eyes, and really kind of gets you into the spirit of the event, or at least it did on the first few playthroughs. I'm sure in the future, after playing this event numerous times, it'll probably start to get old, but at least right now I really like it. Although melee users definitely beware on this event, those acidic gulpers do actually explode on death into a cloud of toxic smoke, which will poison you and deal damage over time, and if you're bloodied melee, you will have an absolutely nightmarish time on this event if you don't prepare accordingly. The rewards here are going to be tiered. The more stills you keep alive, the better rewards you get. Right now, the main event reward is a completely new weapon with the Gulper Smacker that has 3 modified versions. So you can get it with chains, nails, or blades, or just a regular Gulper Smacker. And you can take this weapon and turn it into a legendary after the fact, so you're just adding in a totally new 2-handed weapon that you can convert, and me highlighting that you can turn this into a legendary will make sense in a moment. So if you successfully complete the event, you'll just get the weapon, but if you do keep all of this still is alive, you'll get some added bonuses. You could actually get the weapon with a modified version. So you can see here, I got it with chains, or the best reward is getting a modified version, as well as a plan for a modified version, as well as there are some other misc rewards. One of the major rewards being this gulper head plan you can get. It's pretty cool in that it's not a typical wall mounted head, but rather a spike mounted one. And this totally new item with Gulper Shine, aka Meyer Magic Moonshine, which seemingly the moonshiner is actually making. When you take it, you get these on-screen effects, and it's going to give you plus 50% Gulper Smacker damage and 4 strength for 3 minutes. And even further, after hitting an enemy with melee, it causes 10 damage reduction for 1 minute and 1 poison damage for 5 seconds. So it has specific bonuses to the Gulper Smacker, but then broader bonuses to melee weapons in general, but obviously the biggest bonus is that 50% Gulper Smacker damage. That's pretty huge. I don't know if it makes the Gulper Smacker super relevant, but it is very easy to find this moonshine. You could find a bunch of it at the event, and again, you get it as a reward from the event, but even further, if you do successfully fill up that bathtub with the extra 30, you will get another moonshine complimentary. And a pretty interesting one, this event will actually give you Raider reputation upon successful completion. Yeah, remember that old reputation system they introduced with Wastelanders then never really touched again? This event will take advantage of that. So overall with this one, it's definitely a simple event, but I think it's pretty fun. I like the additional rewards themed around the event itself. You know, though it is in general pretty small, I do think it has a nice compact experience, and I feel like it really leans into the theme overall. I do wish Bev showed up here, Bev being from the Wild Appalachia DLC way back right after Fallout 76 released. It felt like it would be a great opportunity for that, but he's nowhere to be found, at least in this version on the public test server. But then on the other side of the block, we do have Eviction Notice. This is going to take place at the newly added Foundation Outpost, which is a destroyed base east of Foundation proper. The location's pretty minimal right now. NPCs could be integrated later, but otherwise it's just a destroyed base with some corpses scattered throughout. There's really not much to see here. Although the event itself is a bit more interesting, the way it works is basically there is a blast crater emitting radiation, but fortunately the settlers have engineered a way to contain it, and you'll actually start the event by repairing this rad scrubber. Then the event is literally just 10 minutes of you defending the rad scrubber from encroaching super mutants and the super mutant allies. They'll try to destroy it, and you must defend it or repair it if they destroy it. If they do successfully destroy it, radiation will gradually peak up until you eventually fail the event. There are also these meat bags scattered around that you are tasked with destroying. The way this seems to work is when the meat bags are up, the super mutants can spawn closer, but once you destroy them, and it's very easy to destroy these, the super mutants will spawn further out, making the event overall easier. This event is interesting in that it has a lot of high tier enemies. I saw what I estimate to be around 20, if not more, legendary enemies during this event, and many of these were 3-star legendaries. I think this will become one of the best legendary farms in the game, and the layout is cool with propped up defenses all around, the rad scrubber and super mutant coming in from the edges, but it's also incredibly simple and easy if you have just a few well-equipped players. I was actually doing fairly okay just by myself. You can see the super mutants from very far away after you take out the meat bags, and I'm sure on public servers from now on the meat bags will probably be destroyed within a couple of seconds after this event starts, because it's literally that easy. But you basically perch yourself up on one of these higher buildings and snipe the super mutants before they could even touch you. And if you have 5 people that probably have some very strong weapons, because that's how Fallout 76 works nowadays, the event overall just became incredibly easy. There was never really a threat of the super mutants destroying the rad scrubber and radiation actually becoming a factor here. And overall, since this event just has that one central point to defend, and there's a lot of natural defenses on it already to a degree, it really just became a lot of standing in one place where you had a good vantage point on all sides, and 10 minutes of sitting there clicking off in the distance as a super mutant did spawn or start to approach, and then you kind of just sit there for a while waiting to see another super mutant. I could see a ton of people AFK farming this, just sitting there to hopefully get those legendaries, since you don't actually have to tag legendaries anymore. And in general, I just found it pretty tedious. Even my first time playing, which hopefully that's the freshest this will ever be, I was already getting bored about 5 minutes in, because you just kind of stand in place shooting enemies from afar. Now obviously the less players you have, the more fun this will be, but I even feel like with just a couple of players you're not going to have that much of a challenge here. But definitely is a high tier event in that there are a lot of tough enemies, a lot of legendary enemies, but the reality is in Fallout 76 right now, the biggest threat is when an enemy can get a shot off on you, and with this layout the enemies rarely can actually do that if you position yourself well or even just moderately well. With that said, I actually am really happy they are finally adding an event to Foundation. I wish this came with Wastelanders. This too will actually give you Settlers rep upon successful completion, and the theming of the event is fine, just the actual gameplay I didn't enjoy that much. The rewards for this one are pretty unique though, and I mean that in a very literal sense. As what this event is going to do is drop one of 6 totally new unique weapons, these being custom named legendaries that will have fixed effects and sometimes actually have a special skin on them. Like what I think is the coolest is the Foundation's Revenge, a bladed explosive 250 damage resistance while reloading minigun with a very nice custom skin on it. At least right now, only some of the weapons actually do have skins on them. It's not going to apply to all of them, but again, there are 6 different choices to choose from. Some of these weapons being quite powerful, but again, a lot of this is going to depend on your build. Like for some of you, you're probably thrilled to have an easy way to access a bladed explosive weapon, and it might mesh really well with your build and become quite viable for you, but I'm sure a lot of players already have something they're using. And the way this will work is, since these are uniques, you can actually transfer this skin or re-roll the legendaries. These are the legendaries that are assigned to this weapon, and this is the skin assigned to those legendaries. You'll never be able to swap this around, or at least not with how the game works right now. Overall, I like the rewards on this one. I feel like it's a nice switch up over what are the more familiar 1 camp item, 1 weapon, 1 armor. I think having these unique weapons all added in is pretty fun, and I definitely like it. But then for the last event, we do have Tester Metal. I've already covered this like 3 times in the channel at this point, so I'm going to be more brief with this one as we've played it already. It takes place at this new location that was added all the way back with Steel Rain, that with the Metal Dome. The Brotherhood of Steel are investigating a new threat in the area known as the Rust Eagles, who are creating warrior robots. You must fend off those bots for 3 rounds as you protect the Brotherhood of Steel members who are in the arena with you and are conducting research by fighting these robots. You get rewards dependent on the number of Brotherhood of Steel members you keep alive out of the 3, and the main reward here is going to be the new Botsmith armor. You have to earn these pieces individually though, as well as you get things like the Rust Eagle banner and a robot Beerstein display case. Overall, I actually really like this one. It's a very fun event. I think the arena gladiator style is cool. I like the robot implementation. I like the Brotherhood of Steel theme. I know it's something that a lot of players want more of. We want more events around this, and I think overall it feels right at home in Fallout 76. It's another quality event getting added to the game. That's the bulk of the new changes, but there are a couple of miscellaneous ones to highlight also. Crit damage has been changed from multiplicative to additive, and what this means is for many crit items, their flat bonus is doubled. For example, Overdrive is now a 30% bonus instead of being 15%, but it adds instead of multiplying, which means when you stack a bunch of bonuses, it'll probably be slightly less now. This is a nerf to crit damage builds in general, and things will be notably worse for those really stacking crit with consumables, since all of those values aren't stacking as high now. They're not multiplying, they're adding. But what is potentially going to be the bigger impact is they also made some changes to filling the crit meter. How much your crit meter gets filled by luck now starts to taper off after you hit 12 luck, meaning the max fill rate you can achieve is now lower. Previously, you could go above 30 luck, but at 30 luck, you had a fill rate of 45, and now it's only going to be 31, and 30 luck is the cap as far as luck filling the crit meter goes. This makes it hard to maintain consistent crits overall, and definitely a nerf to some builds, but you could switch up your build and still crit pretty often. Obviously, there's more investigation that has to go into this. I don't personally use a crit build, so I'm really looking at this from a third person looking in, but in general, crit builds are being changed at least somewhat. You'll probably have to adjust after this update goes live. For better or worse, it seems like this is the only major change as far as balance go. Legacies are largely untouched here, which they definitely need to be touched. They were overtuned already, and with the last update, they only got stronger. At least many of them did. It seems like there might be some changes around how explosive effects play, like somebody else using an explosive weapon won't necessarily show the explosive effects on your screen, which could be super nice, but it's unclear if that's intended or how that's all working with this patch. Season 9 is kicking off with this one. It has a pretty cool scoreboard overall, that with the Heart of Steel being kind of a Lost Explorer crossed with Brotherhood of Steel theme. There's a Hellcat season paint for the T-51. It seems like this Blackbird power armor paint is one of the big ones. This is probably going to be super popular, the original Blackbird power armor paint being one of the most popular for Fallout 76 for a long time, as well as a ton of other military themed items added to the game, some new marine armor skins, and even this radiation dummy, which I think is pretty hilarious. So as far as my thoughts on this update overall goes, I think it's an interesting one. Fallout 76 is getting more things it needed in quality new events. I'm definitely not unhappy this is getting added to the game, and it's going to make the event pool feel a lot healthier and more interesting. But I still do feel like this is going to be an incredibly boring and tedious time to play, especially when this is the major new content. On the public test server, they set it up so the only events to pop up are the new ones, and you're constantly experiencing these new things. Every 20 minutes, you'll get one of the three. So there's a consistent flow of new content. But assuming they don't fully do that on release, which I highly doubt they're going to cut out all of the old events on release, the actual content coming with this update is going to be very spaced out. You play the new event, and then you're kind of just left sitting around waiting for another one to pop up, which might be a while. You might have several old events pop up before another one randomly does spawn, and there'll probably be some kind of bias to this list, but there's just under 20 new events in Fallout 76 right now. That's a lot of rotations you're going to have to potentially sit through to actually get the new content. And then even further, when you actually do play the new content, that's it. You're just kind of left sitting here with a bunch of the old familiar content. New events are great, but new events are most fun when there's other things going on. When there's a new quest line, and as you're doing a quest, a new event pops up, so you could go do the event for a while. Then you go return to the quest line, or whatever new grind gets added in. Events being added in on their own, although fun, are kind of just a burst of enjoyment and then a lot of waiting for that to return because they don't consistently spawn, or at least that's not traditionally how it works. And even if they do make some changes specifically for this update, that's obviously not going to last. And this is the summer update. This is going to encapsulate several months of this game's lifespan and be the only new content. But speaking of new content, as I mentioned at the start of this video, this is one of the first updates to really give us a decent sized look at future after this, that with expeditions and to a lesser degree Nuka World on tour. All of this information comes from the Data Miners Discord, which I will have linked down below. But there are a few very notable new details data mined around expeditions that are very interesting. We do have this reward screen, which I think actually confirms a decent amount. We heard from a recent interview how expeditions will not be time locked, and this seems to confirm that further. So you could just focus on completing the objectives, then once you complete them, seemingly you could stay there for a while and explore things even further. It's not going to work exactly like daily ops. It seems like there's a lot of reward entries upon completion, quite a few different things that can be filled out here. And for better or worse, it seems like one of those rewards may be a new currency. This is listed in the files as XPD currency, and we really have no idea what this is right now. What they've done in the past, obviously, is basically introduce new items with their new feature, and then to actually get those new items, you have to earn this currency. So maybe you need the XPD currency to get the new weapons or armors, etc. But what is definitely the most telling are these tutorial entries, where they do say that survivors from outside of Appalachia have made contact with us, and we're basically traveling to them in new territories to rebuild the wasteland. We're going to get there via vertebrate stations at the White Springs Resort. Seems like that'll finally become a proper hub location for this new expeditions-based content. And the most telling lines by far, vertebrate travel requires fully charged ultrasight batteries. Batteries are filled by completing daily fuel quests. Team leaders can assemble groups and use the map to begin a new expedition. Teams may return to Appalachia and resume the same expedition at any time. So this ultrasight battery mechanic is definitely pretty interesting. It seems to mean that there will be some kind of grind around actually getting to expeditions, and that grind will be restricted by daily quests, probably meaning that you could only do so much towards that on a given day. So my interpretation of this, and again, this is based off a data mine, based off the public test server, there's a lot to happen in between now and this actually releasing. It's all subject to change, but based off what we have right now, I would assume that you're going to have to log in every day to maximize the amount of times you could do expeditions per week, and perhaps if you do log in every day, you complete those daily challenges, you'll have enough fuel to do one expedition per day. Is that too optimistic? Could it be that you won't actually be able to do 7 expeditions in a week and it'll actually cut it down even further, like you could only do 4 or 5 a week, one every other day? With daily limits being implemented on this though, it definitely seems like it's trying again to appeal to that daily login crowd, getting people to actively play this game, almost like chores, or people call it a second job with how they play sometimes. But to me, at least, this makes it clear, based on this data mine, you're not going to be able to just freely fly to these expeditions. You're going to have to do some stuff first to actually get there, and probably repeatedly do stuff to get there. It does seem like, though, you can return, or maybe pause it, return to Appalachia, then go back, or even perhaps you could do one, and then you could join a team with somebody else or one of your friends, then go back for a second time based on those teams' entries, and I assume to make this all worth it or justified, it means expeditions will probably have some pretty special rewards. Although we don't really know a ton about this all yet, and it seems like there's going to be at least 2 new currencies added in, both fuel and this XPD thing. As far as what we have on Nuka World on tour, the big thing is the Ultrasite Abomination, which seems to be the new region boss. It seems like it's going to have 1 or 2 different forms it can take, and obviously with the Ultrasite naming, probably connected to the Scorched in some way, nuking a Scorched-esque zone or something like that. Obviously it's very vague. It seems like this is very work in progress with how it looks right now. It's hard to even make out what this creature will be. The claw makes me think it'll be perhaps crab, mirelurk, etc. themed, but who really knows? With that said though, that's a look at a lot of the future of Fallout 76. We're kind of looking at a good 6-7 months into the future of this game at this point. These 3 new events are coming out this summer. We don't know exactly when in summer, and then this fall at some point we're getting expeditions. We really hope that's before Starfield, and it probably will be, probably in September or October. But again, this is about 7 months of new content. Obviously we still know basically nothing about expeditions, but as far as the summer content goes, I think it's going to be a rough time. I think there's going to be a lot of people that enjoy the new events but get tired of the waiting process in between pretty quickly. Let me know your thoughts on all of this down below. I'd love to hear from you guys what your initial reactions to this. With that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.